The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Newman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic, on a President Day special. Hope that you all enjoy your holiday. It used to be, back in the old days, when I was a youngin', and dirt was relatively a new invention, we used to walk around and play in the kids. As kids, we couldn't play. There was no dirt for us to play with when I was a youngin'. There was just like this murkiness and void and depth and stuff like that. Then they invented dirt, and I gotta tell you, that changed everything. But back when I was a youngin', we didn't have no President's Day holiday. That was not a thing. Those of you who are too young to appreciate may not recognize that we used to have Washington's birthday, technically first Lincoln's birthday, and then 2 weeks later, Washington's birthday. And that was all good. Everyone was happy with that. Back then, we were too young and naive to recognize that Lincoln is no more noteworthy or meriting of a birthday celebration than Genghis Khan. But that being said, that's the way we did things. I'm just sharing with you days of yore, olden times, back in the day. Then there was this popularization of Martin Luther King Day, or if you saw Coming to America, Martin Luther the King Day. So Martin Luther the King Day at first was not a federal holiday. This is another common mistake, a misperception that is held by far too many Zoomers today. That was not a federal holiday. That was actually a state-by-state holiday. And then for like the longest period of time, I want to say 15 years, 20 years, 49 out of 50 states said, yeah, we're all going to make this a holiday. But Arizona was like, no, we are not doing that. We are not doing that. But then a whole bunch of these states were like recognizing and saying, look, we kind of got like 3 holidays over like 4 weeks there. It's kind of a lot of holidays. We know it's the winter and people want time off, but that's a lot of holidays. Maybe there's some way we can like remedy this situation. So Martin Luther the King Day got shortened to Martin Luther King Day. They lost the became a federal holiday. And all of a sudden, Washington and Lincoln were merged together into this one thing called President's Day, which, frankly, I always thought of as being a reference to specifically celebrating Presidents Washington and Lincoln, because I'm old school. That's where I'm coming from. Over here, back in the day. That's where I'm coming from. So I always looked at it, President's Day, as Washington's birthday and Lincoln's birthday, just sort of glommed together there because they're both in February. Okay. But now I'm looking at social media, and what I'm realizing is that some folks out there mistakenly believe that President's Day is like a reference to just any president. It's a celebration of just, I don't know, the office or something like that. It's just President's Day. Now, if the motivation here was to sort of recognize, that celebrating Abraham Lincoln's birthday is kind of akin to celebrating, I don't know, Khmelnytsky's birthday. Not that he was as bad as that dude. But yeah, if people were recognizing that, and that was their motivation to morph it over into being just presidents in general, I would get that. But I happen to think, I recognize the lack of aptitude of some of the people on social media. And what I've come to realize is, no, they're just idiots. They're just stupid folk. Very, very stupid folk who somehow managed to stay in my timeline. I don't know why. But here he is. M.M. Pedelin. It's one of the first tweets I saw today with his stupidity of good morning and happy Monday to everyone who appreciates the grace, intelligence, honesty, and humanity of President Jimmy Carter over the greed, buffoonery, lies, and inhumanity. You're inhumane! You're inhumane! Inhumanity of Donald Trump. Happy real President's Day. Oh, okay. So I guess over here, dude who's living with his parents, dude who's a paid shill of the DNC, apparently thinks there's such a thing as real presidents versus, I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. I don't get what it means. But apparently he also thinks that President's Day has something to do with, like, I don't know, Carter or Trump, which frankly, it doesn't. It just doesn't. And I'm not going down with it. But, and I don't think that his motivation is that he's trying to steal any shrift, trying to give appropriate short shrift to Abraham Lincoln. So I believe that he's just an incompetent boob. I'm going based on historical evidence. So just wanted to share that so that you will not mirror the incompetence, rival the incompetence of Brooklyn Dad Defiant, because he is incompetent. So with that out of the way, Katie, member for 1 month. You see, I know this is not true. I wonder what YouTube did to you. Survive 1 month in the coal tunnels. Excited to celebrate tomorrow with Fanny. So I need to just alert you. I was looking up. I appreciate you bringing this up, Katie. Thank you. I want to just alert you. I don't think it's tomorrow. Like, I've been trying to figure out, like, what time tomorrow is this? And I spent, like, an hour trying to do research to find out, like, what was the status? Because when we last left court on Friday, so Judge McAfee basically said that he was going to have an interrogation of Terrence Bradley in chambers, and based on that, we might have further questioning, we might not have further questioning, and then we'd have closing arguments. And I assumed that they would be on the next business day, which would be tomorrow. So you may have gotten that understanding from me, because that was my understanding based on watching McAfee in court. I was reading today that he's going to schedule sometime either at the end of this week or early next week for closing arguments. And I assume for Bradley's testimony also, because once they're coming in there, they're coming in there. So that's what I'm assuming. So I don't think it's tomorrow. If I'm mistaken, you will see me scrambling like a lunatic. You won't see me scrambling, but I will be scrambling behind the scenes. And all of a sudden you'll see me, like, basically come flying in here from the side with turning my camera on, just sort of, I'm here. Okay, let's catch up. That's what's likely going to happen if, in fact, there is something tomorrow, which I don't believe there to be. Michael Costello, new member of the following. Welcome to the following. I don't recognize you, so I will tell you that the following is an entity. Those who follow here, this show is called the Following Program. People who join as members of the channel become followers. You're not followers of me. I'm not the leader, okay? Because this is not at all a type of cult. So I'm not the leader of this group. And the following is basically just about greater community, unity, and personal growth. So we wish you well in all your trips and all your travels as a follower. And it's not at all, but don't let the others fool you, because it ain't at all a cult type of cult. So not at all a cult type of cult. All right. A few other things I want to share with you here, which just sort of caught my eye, and I thought, well, that's kind of amusing. I want to share that. Some of the things that Snopes has to check out. I saw this. Cat Turd shared this out. So did AOC tweet we should just print the 34 trillion and pay off our national debt. These are the people in charge, folks. One execution replied. On February 14, 2024, a post attributed to U.S. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, better known as AOC on X, formerly Twitter, went viral, in which she appeared to say, we should just print the $34 trillion and pay off our national debt. The post received more than 263,600 views, 4,900 likes as of this writing. These are the people in charge, folks, one user replied. Now, just to make it clear here, by big name account standards, that's not considered like a massive thing, but apparently Snopes is like, no, we have to quell this. What some users may not have realized, was that the account is a labeled parody account posing as the politician. Ooh, Snopes cracking this one wide open, cracking it wide open. You thought you could trick us with your parody account, labeled parody account. We know a parody account when we see one when it's labeled that way. A real X account can be seen here. Besides the handle of the parody account specifying this, that, hey, this is a parody, Ocasio-Cortez herself addressed this fact. The particular account is fake in May of 2023. FYI, there's a fake account on here impersonating me and going viral. The Twitter CEO has engaged it, boosting visibility. It is releasing false policy statements and gaining spread. I am assessing with my team how to move forward because we have a whole plan in place as to how to move forward in making sure that nobody can ever enjoy parody ever again. In the meantime, be careful of what you see. And apparently that was not enough of a warning because one or two rubes, one or two idiots, one or two really, really slow on the uptake folk got a little lost about the fact that when it says parody account, it might not be the actual individual who is being parodied. Possibly not. Elon Musk, the CEO of X at the time, did reply with a fire emoji to a post by the parody account. You're just emboldening these parodiers. You're emboldening them. You're spreading disinformation, misinformation on your own stupid platform. In which parody account in which Ocasio-Cortez parody appeared to say, this might be the wine talking, but I've got a crush on Elon Musk. The original tweet is no longer available on the parody account, but our newsroom captured the exchange for another story pertaining to the same account, May 2023. Musk's account is the only one the parody account follows as of this there you go. Well, breaking fact checkers. They're on top of it. They get to the bottom of it. You can't fool them. You might be able to think that, hey, if you label something parody account, you'll be able to slip on by Snopes. No, you won't. You're wasting your time. Don't even try. I'm here to tell you, don't even try. As cult members, we do a 70. Is that part of it? I'm a follower, and I don't know that I can make it through a 72-hour fast. Yeah, 92.1. Yeah, there you go. Like and subscribe, good people. Free shovel at 100K, LOL. Yes. At 100K, I will send out a shovel to one lucky subscriber. There you go. I'll send someone a shovel. I'll pick someone around when I hit 100K. There you go. Something's got to work. So gift away the memberships. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if that would work. I don't know what that would do. But you never know. Gifted them away. I don't know. Make fake accounts. Fake me out. Get me my stupid silver play button already. All right. So there you go. So I want to also share with you something else that I stumbled on. Do I want to share this with you? Yeah, I'm not crazy about it. I'd rather share this with you. Let me share this with you. I want to jump into this. Last week, I shared with you a story about this drag racer who did a burnout on a patch of street that had a whole bunch of colors in the shape of a rectangle. So there was a rectangle which had a whole bunch of different colors on it. And he did a burnout on it. and they were looking and calling it like, vandalizing the street with your burnouts. That's what he was doing. I just want to tip my beanie. I want to tip my beanie to someone who stood up for that fine young man who was either doing absolutely nothing wrong or engaging in free speech. It's one or the other. He either wasn't making any speech or it was a statement. If in fact it was a statement against, I don't know, people who like rectangles that have a lot of different colors on them. But I wanted to just tip my beanie to one of my fellow podcasters here. Tim Pool gives $10,000 for legal defense of Florida man charged with felony for doing burnouts on the LGBTQ. See, it doesn't say LGBTQ there. It doesn't say that. Crosswalk. It doesn't say it. It's just like told you, it's like a rectangle here. It's a rectangle. And he just is a rectangle. On Monday, Tim Pool announced that he had sent $10,000 legal defense fund set up for the 19-year-old Florida man charged with a felony for doing burnouts at an intersection that was painted with the LGBTQ colors. Yes, they have colors now. Which color is the B? Which color is the B? Which one is the T? I want to know which color. Here's a headline for the woke cult Pool wrote on X. I just sent $10K for homie's legal defense. He was charged with felony for burning out as he turned while driving over a cultist flag painting. And it is a cultist flag painting. It's a real cult. It's a cult type of cult. They have like squirrel mutilations, goat sacrifices, and I don't know. They're burning produce to Val. Dylan Brewer, 19, turned himself in early February and was subsequently charged with felony criminal mischief over $1,000. That's what it was, not vandalism. Felony criminal mischief over $1,000 in reckless driving. City officials said the incident took place on the evening of Sunday, February 4th, at the intersection Northeast 1st Street and Northeast 2nd Avenue. Footage captured by the traffic camera shows a large black truck with a flag. He had a flag of his own. Attached to the back, revving its engine as it turns left, skidding around the corner, and leaving a streak of the burned rubber in its wake. Palm Beach County Human Rights Council has called on law enforcement to deem Brewer's actions a hate crime. It's a hate crime now. This is very, very hatey type of crime. See, this is where we're basically playing games with semantics. That's like we want to label this a crime motivated by hate, as opposed to the concept that, hey, the reason hate crime is considered such a terrible thing is because you're basically harming an individual for their immutable characteristics. But this is now hate. There you go, hate crime. I think a big problem with our judiciary doesn't understand hate crimes are hate crimes, whether or not they fit the specific definition of the law. President founder Randy Hawk said, Rand, Hawk. I'll call you Randy anyway. No, Randy, you got this wrong. Okay, you got this wrong. You don't understand what a hate crime is. Just because you decide to label something a hate crime, don't make it a hate crime. The whole point to hate crimes, if in fact anyone believes there should be such a thing, is to protect people from harm. There needs to be consequences so people know if they commit crimes like this, they're going to jail. They're going to be fined. They're going to have to suffer from what they did. That would make the crime illegal. That would make it illegal. There you go. Violation of his free speech. 100% violation of his free speech. If he went out there and basically started screaming F, I added a new letter to the alphabet. I just take the same thing and I start it with F LGBTQ. If that's what his message was, would that also be a hate crime? Idiots. The $16,000 crosswalk was created with funding from the PBCHRC. It cost $16,000 to basically. I mean, I'm not much of a painter. Look, I'm not a painter. I'm not kidding you. I'm not a painter. But I'm telling you right now, that stupid, just straight flag, like this. You literally just take a piece of tape and you put it on an angle. You put like 6 strips of tape down, and then you just paint in between, like you just spray paint blue, green, yellow, $16,000. It's not even like that much paint there. There's not even that much paint. Somebody got ripped off here. Somebody got ripped off hard. I ripped off very, very hard. This is messed up. $16,000. Ridiculous. $16,000. Was created funding from the PBC, HRC, and the AIDS Healthcare Foundation in 2021. Fundraiser on Give Send Go has raised over $20,000 as of late Monday morning. The fund not only supports brewers' legal defense, but also champions the fundamental American values of freedom of expression and the right to a fair trial. By contributing, you stand for the principles. Okay, blah, blah, blah. I don't really need to. I'm not trying to do advertising here. But I thought it was interesting that a story I covered, apparently Tim Pool came upon it also. And not only did he come upon it, but he actually supported it. So tip of the beanie to you, Timmy. Well done. AOC, can I get Tito soda with lime? Only question she's qualified to answer. I see what you did there. Member for 8 months, Jay Liebgott. Great job, you. Great job. It takes a cult to recognize a cult. That's not true. That's not true. There's nothing true about this. This is the sort of thing people say. And I know a lot of people say this. But if you think about it, most people who call out cults are probably not in cults. This is like the empty phrase, diversity is our strength. It's just, you can say it. It doesn't make it true. So I respectfully disagree with you, Stephen Cooper. If it was American flag, it would be okay. 100%. 100%. Why would that not be a hate crime? Hunter Biden painted it. Duh. I didn't think of that. That makes sense. That actually would explain the hefty price tag there. $16,000 to draw a bunch of lines. No such thing as hate speech, so no hate crime. This is true too. Totally agree with you. Randy Hawk. Why are you all so hateful? Why are you all so hateful? I'm working on a holiday, and you're all so hateful. So hateful. I know what this is. I know what you're trying to say here. I get what you're trying to say here. So hateful. I'm working on President's Day. Speaking of which, this is when I... Can we talk about that individual I referenced at the outset of this show? Let's do that. Sic semper tyrannis. So shall it be to all tyrants. John Wilkes Booth supposedly shouted after he assassinated the 16th president. That's how Lincoln... Lovable, saintly Abraham Lincoln was viewed by many in the 1860s, and not just in the South. Lovable, saintly Abraham Lincoln was viewed by many, not just in the South. He was a tyrant on a par with the worst Roman emperors. He had suspended habeas corpus. Yeah, pretty bad stuff there. He had launched a war in which 620,000 Americans died. Yep, did that too. He had begun a hugely unpopular draft. He had liberated black slaves. That was a good thing. That's the good part that he did. Throughout the war, the fake news media kept up the anti-Lincoln drumbeats. No, you can say they kept it was the fake news media kept up the pro-Lincoln drumbeat with editorials about Lincoln, which he was the Widowmaker and Hell's Outrider. And Abraham the Fanatic and his Red Republican maniacs smeared all over with the blood of the innocent, both from Jersey City's American Standard newspapers. Okay? Worse than all of this, as far as Miss Ferdinand Kloss was concerned, was his low character, why he even went to the theater. Why? Oh, you see, he even went to the theater. You sort of need to put that in quotes so we understand where you're going here. A. Lincoln, President of the United States, was shot through his head by an unknown person in the theater, Ferdinand sniffed in her April 14th diary entry. A fit place for a president or any other person to meet with death. and think of like how much more degenerate the theater has become since then. Newspapers ran cartoons of Lincoln as a near ape, a boorish knuckle dragger who had no business being in the White House. Many wondered whether America would survive him or the war he started. Hard to imagine now that Lincoln is widely held as our greatest president. Widely held as our greatest president, because history is written by the victors. But many in his day would not have given a penny for him. Lincoln becomes a martyr because of the assassination, Chu said, but he had a lot of detractors, and some people thought his policies were unconstitutional. No, it's not some people thought his policies were unconstitutional. Habeas corpus is unconstitutional. It's a violation of his civil rights. So yeah, it is unconstitutional. Not many people thought. Arresting newspaper publishers, censorship. If you want to defend him, you could say these were extraordinary circumstances, but a lot of people hated him. Absolutely. Yeah, well said, Grimsbar. Almost 2 years now. Almost 2 years as a member here. Thank God for Grimsbar. Isn't history fascinating? The good guys always win. They always win. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. I'm just going to say, like, one of the most famous things that he ever said was, a house divided cannot stand, which was the strongest argument against going to war with the South instead of just letting them go. A house divided against itself cannot stand. So then why are you working so hard to keep this divided house? See, and this is what people who believe in censorship believe, is that if we can silence you, that means we're not divided. Apparently Abraham Lincoln was looking to have a very dystopian house where it's like, we're going to basically beat you into silence and you're going to stay here and we're going to pretend that you're not utterly miserable being here. So, yeah. Not a fan of Abraham Lincoln. Not a fan. Not a fan. But there is one man I am a fan of. There's one president I'm a fan of. Ironically, considering I was just bashing a Republican president, the greatest president in American history, obviously, is a Democrat. And I actually mean that sincerely. Greatest president in American history. I'm saying before living memory. Don't talk to me about anyone in the last 50 years. I don't want to hear about, like, Trump, Reagan, whatever. I don't want to hear about that. I'm saying sincerely. And that's because my yardstick for what makes a great president is you make certain campaign promises, you keep them, and you're basically doing the will that the people brought you in there to do, especially if they're tough accomplishments. So obviously, in case you're unaware of who I'm referring to, without any bit of sarcasm at all, as the greatest president in American history, it's obviously James Knox Polk. It's really not even debatable. There's even a song that was written by They Must Be Giants dedicated towards lionizing, canonizing the accomplishments of James Knox Polk that I highly recommend you check out. If I play it right here, I could basically then just go right after this video ends and just delete from 29 minutes into this video to 32 minutes when it's over, because I know I'm going to get flagged if I play it. But it's actually it's a cute little ditty, which I highly recommend that you check out. And I was actually, in honor of President's Day, listening to it earlier before the show. And when I was listening to this song by They Must Be Giants called James K. Polk. Sorry, They Might Be Giants. Not They Must Be Giants. They mustn't be. It's not that they must be giants, but they might be giants. That was bad. So there's a video that I found, which in the musical interlude, I can't play all of this because we know I'm going to basically, YouTube's going to go nuts on me asking what the hell I was thinking. But in this video, they basically try working with the different lyrics of the of the song. And by the musical interlude, they give you little basic facts about things that happened between 1844 and 1848 when Polk was president. And this is a pretty interesting thing right here that you'll see by the musical interlude. Check this out. They talk about great works, great literature that was created during that period of 1844 to 1848. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Walden and Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau. Wuthering Heights, Jane Eyre. The Count of Monte Cristo. And I'm thinking as I'm looking at this list, like, has anything been written in the last, I don't know, 150 years, which rivals anything on this list that came out during that 4-year period? And I would say probably not. Probably not. Certainly not in the last century. Certainly not in the last century. And it made me think to myself, like, why is that? I mean, Count of Monte Cristo, for crying out loud. I can't speak for the late 19th century. There probably were some great works that came out in the late 19th century. But I'm simply saying, when you talk about all-time classics that came out, I mean, The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, that's an amazing list right there. And I was asking myself, so why is that? I'm not just going nowhere with this. I'm going somewhere with this here. I'm going somewhere with this. Trust me, I'm going somewhere. There's a direction I'm going in here. I was asking myself, why is that? Why is it that we don't see the same? If I ask you to come up with, I don't know, the greatest written works of the last 50 years, I mean, what the heck are you going to give me? Harry Potter, for crying out loud? Is that what you're going to give me? And what I realized is this. This is what I realized. If The Raven was written today, no one would know about it. It wouldn't get the same type of international acclaim. If somebody wrote something as brilliant as The Raven in 2024, no one would ever find out about it. It would just be, lost in the annals of time. There would be, a few thousand people who might stumble across it, but it would just be lost. We would never know. That's the reality. So it's not that when we talk about classics like Count of Monte Cristo, that it doesn't mean that they're not being created. In theory, they could be created. We just literally wouldn't know. I mean, maybe, like I said, some literary aficionados may be familiar with it. Yeah, I forgot about this one. This is a classic. If I Did It by O.J. Simpson. I mean, I guess we can call the Tolkien. Like, you can think like a century from now, Tolkien will be considered. I guess in the early 20th century. So you had Chekhov. I'm still waiting for something in the last 50 years. Still waiting for something. One thing. Just one in the last 50 years. I guess Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Well, what I'm getting at here is this. It would not receive nearly the same the financial success, like popularity, and the trappings of that in the form of financial success. So that's not like meant for the masses, right? I mean, it's not. The masses are not going to appreciate something that has that type of depth. That's just not how we're cut anymore. We're not geared that way. You know, and then I started thinking about other forms of like entertainment. So I was thinking like rock. So the Beatles were appreciated in their time. Doors. There's some bands that were appreciated in their time. Heck, even Kurt Cobain was appreciated in his time. But they found commercial success. It was, I think, easier to sink your teeth into it. I was just wondering, as far as like, you know, greatness and the possibility for greatness to go unrecognized. And my point was this, and I don't think you can argue this point really, that it's very plausible. It's very plausible that there's a lot of greatness out there, which for one reason or another goes unrecognized. And it really doesn't matter the entertainment genre. So what I'm saying to you is this, like the greatest podcaster on earth might be someone that that basically goes completely unnoticed. That's basically completely, no one ever heard of him. No one. Just completely lost. Could be you. Who knows? That I'm not saying I'm Alexander Dumas. I'm just saying. And if you're wondering who to blame, it's YouTube. That's it. It's just blame you. That's why you never heard of him. You once were subbed to him, but you just didn't know. You forgot about it. You saw something one night, and then you hit sub, and then YouTube said, "You don't really mean it. You don't really mean it." So we're gonna undo that. So there you go. It really could be greatness unappreciated in its own time. But we can be confident that generations later, hopefully through the annals of time, all of these errors in failure to appreciate greatness ultimately one day is remedied. One day. So I've never read Wuthering Heights, by the way. I have no idea if it's any good. Beethoven, Mozart plus operas was even earlier, still known until today. Yeah, that was true genius. They were appreciated in their time. But I guess that's what he was saying. Good guys always win. Tom Clancy. That's not bad. Jason Bourne. Robert Ludlum. There you go. Robert Ludlum. Recognizing his time. Ian Fleming. I don't know who Joey Mormon is. I don't know who that is, but I believe you. Is that a guy who retired because of health issues recently? Orwell's not bad, but he's been going more than 50 years. From what I understand. It's not bad. That's not a bad one. And this is kind of my point. We are idiocracy. We are. Somehow when I saw that comment, it just motivated me to look over in the Rumble ghetto. One shovel? What the Breck Nichols is not impressed with my one shovel. What if I paint it gold and put a big T on it? Okay? I'll paint it gold and put a big giant T on the shovel. Breck Nichols unimpressed. That's not what a hate crime is. Sorry, I was checking over. On locals. That was pretty funny, actually. I don't even know what that is. I don't know what that is. I do want to say one thing, though. I want to share with you something like a backstage thing, okay? I'm going to take myself off screen so it doesn't like become like just crazy when you see this, because if you'll see me like 1,000 times. I'm going to take myself off screen and I want to show you Indigenous Soul. What happens when I don't know what you do, but whenever he writes in X, he writes a comment in X, it stays there forever. And I'll show you what I want to show you what I mean, because you won't understand what I mean. Let me show you. You're still going to see it. You're still going to see it 1,000 times, but that's not what I wanted to show you. You see over here, let me make this big, how Indigenous Soul, this dude right here, for one reason or another, it pops up as coming at 12:58 a.m., 1 a.m. I don't know why that is. It always shows him being like an hour in the future. So I don't know if you're some sort of mystical man from the future dude who's coming in here just giving me secret coded messages like written tonight that it's going to be really relevant to me an hour and 40 minutes from now. But I don't know how you do that. Other people, when they write on X, it's not in the future like that. I'm just trying to figure out what it is. I would hazard a guess that you were on European time. That was the guess I was going to hazard. However, A, it doesn't make any sense because everything else comes up in the proper time parameter. And B, read what poem? You're still talking. Now I'm going to see that till 1:05 in the morning. Read the poem, Joe. What am I supposed to do with this? I don't know. And now it just stays there. All I see is just Indigenous Soul talking to me. Oh my God. It's painful. It makes me so annoyed. It makes me really freaking annoyed. All right. I'm not reading The Raven. I've read The Raven many a time. All right. Let's start getting into some stories I need to cover. Stories that you don't know about. Tonight we're covering things you don't know. Stories that you don't know, but you should. Check this out. In Crazy Town, by that I obviously mean San Francisco, they appointed the first non-citizen to serve on elections commission. What? That's right. An illegal alien who has no right to vote is now sitting on the San Francisco Elections Commission. Aren't they so friggin' evolved? It's not your fault, Indigenous Soul. I was just busting your chops. I'm not mad at you. You didn't do anything wrong. Although I don't know if you're going to hear me first an hour and a half from now. So I don't know how that's going to work. We're talking through some time. Indigenous Soul and I are having like conversations through a time portal. I would think he's in Europe, but that would be 5 hours ahead of me and like 2 hours ahead of me. He's not even 2 full hours. He's like an hour and 45 minutes. That's like I don't know, 20% of the way across the Atlantic Ocean. Makes no sense. All right. Here we go. The newest member of the San Francisco Elections Commission, a 7-member civilian body that oversees and creates policy for the city's Department of Elections, isn't legally allowed to vote, at least today. Kelly Wong, an immigrant rights advocate, is believed to be the first non-citizen appointed to the commission. At a swearing-in ceremony administered by Board Supervisors President Aaron Peskin on Wednesday at San Francisco City Hall, dozens of people gathered to commemorate the occasion. Wong said she hopes her appointment is a beacon of hope for other immigrants living in the city. You don't need to follow the law. Why should you have to follow the law? Break the law, you can start writing our laws for us. Break the law, come in here. Stop it. Just stop it. You didn't know. Long said she hopes her appointment is a beacon of hope for other immigrants in the city. There are always voices inside my head. Like, you can't do it. You're not competent. You're an immigrant. This is not your country. That's not true. You're talking to yourself again. Who immigrated to the U.S. in 2019 Hong Kong to pursue graduate studies. If I can do it, you can do it too. No, I can't because I'm not an illegal alien, so they're probably not going to want me. Wong's appointment is the result of a 2020 voter-approved measure that removed the citizenship requirement to serve as San Francisco boards, commissions, and advisory bodies. Each of the commission's 7 members is appointed by a different city official, such as the mayor, city attorney, district attorney, board of supervisors, voted unanimously. Because, aren't we so evolved? We're going to give the job to an illegal alien who can't vote. Sick people. They're so sick. What a twisted place. I'm very impressed by her commitment to enfranchising people who rarely vote, to educating people about the voting process, and to bring in non-citizens and get them the tools they need as they become citizens, Peskin said. So let's check out Kelly Wong giving her statement to her constituents after she was appointed to this prestigious position. Here's Kelly Wong addressing her San Francisco constituents.
咁就其實喺2年前我嚟到三藩市嘅時候咧，咁我就認識咗好多原來三藩市有好多嘅權利嘅喎，好多權利係好多非公民啊、移民咧都可以享有嘅，包括咧就算你唔係公民咧都可以咧去做委員去影響政策嘅。好多時其實我哋華裔啦或者亞裔嘅聲音咧都比較薄弱，咁咧特別係識講中文或者其他語言嘅人咧更加少咧係有個代表性嘅喺個議會上面，所以我覺得亦都因為咁咧，我就覺得我好想代表我哋移民嘅聲音，其實我哋都一樣有交稅，我哋一樣對社會有貢獻，但係咧我哋政策上咧好少有我哋嘅聲音。
喺華人權益促進會任職倡導嘅黃永軍係香港移民，佢今日喺三藩市市參市佩斯金陪同下宣誓成為選舉委員。作為非公民嘅佢形容成為選舉委員嘅過程歷經唔少挑戰。上任之後，佢計劃喺決策方面為移民同唔識講英文嘅選民發聲，提升移民社區嘅投票率。選舉委員職責包括監察選舉，確保選舉公平公正。
Well, there you go. There you go. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. Thank you for weighing in with that that poignant message. I don't know what the heck is happening in this country anymore. I don't know what's happening. I don't know. What is your problem? So English. It had translation on the bottom there. They taught this way about San Francisco. Can't stand that place. She's a Chinese plant. Time zones are a human construct. Racist. That's fair. It's just a fake thing. Whenever she needs to keep quiet and give me a happy. What could go wrong? I don't know. That's more than 50 years. Greatest podcaster making money at Grift would be Joe Rogan. That's probably true. L. That's pretty funny. Jesus Freak. Yeah. Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard. All right. So I want to share that story with you. So I thought you need to know who's running your elections. Someone who's not allowed to vote. Everything's totally fine. Don't look over here. Don't look over here. Everything's totally fine. All right. So there's a Supreme Court case that is a case coming before the Supreme Court involving the FDA and its procedures for fast tracking approvals on various drugs and whether or not they're following proper procedures. What's in that case? What's in that case? Well, now I know I'm going to mispronounce it. Mifepristone? Issues with Mifepristone, which you may have heard about this, which is a very popular drug, abortion pill drug. It's become very popular over the last couple of decades, Mifepristone. There were all sorts of rumors that went around there saying that Mifepristone was something that is dangerous for girls to take. Studies that, reports that came out in studies, and that's part of the reason that this drug became part of the national discussion. Post Millennial has a report, and my coverage on this, I'm going to start by basically saying this time I actually really mean it seriously. There's really no medical advice here. I don't know anything about Mifepristone, if it's an efficacy. I don't know if it's a good drug. I don't know if it's a bad drug. I know it's probably not a healthy drug for a fetus. Probably not very good for the not good for the fetus. That I can say confidently. It's not good for the fetus. But I think that this story requires some analysis. The story that came out of Post Millennial today. And even though I am very strongly against the use of drugs like this, even though I'm very strongly against it, you're going to see that the angle I'm taking tonight is probably going to surprise you. It's probably going to surprise you. And the reason I'm taking this perspective is because I think it's important to have truth in journalism. And most of the time, truth is going to fall into what I anticipate to be. Sometimes it's not on your side. And if you lie about it, or you mislead the public about it, or even if you're mistaken, you need to correct that. And a failure to correct it is literally makes you no better than any of these my adversaries on the other side of the aisle who do what I do. And accordingly, I do want to share this report that the Post Millennial shared. I'm going to talk about this. Medical Journal retracts studies on safety of abortion-causing drugs ahead of Supreme Court arguments. The Supreme Court is slated to hear arguments against the safety of the chemical abortion drug Mifepristone. I don't know anything about this drug. I don't know anything about it. I know nothing about it other than the fact that pregnant girls take it. I assume under the advice of their doctors. And I would certainly recommend that anyone who's going to take any drugs should certainly consult with their doctors. 3 medical research reports which pieced together an alarming set of data showing the abortion pill Mifepristone is very dangerous to girls and women were retracted by the publisher Sage just weeks before the Supreme Court is slated to hear arguments against the safety of the drug. The publisher cited a conflict of interests, but the Charlotte Lozier Institute, CLI, which funded the research, is fighting back. Quote, this case has been painted as a pro-life versus pro-abortion case, but in its essence, it's about the FDA performing its job to protect the American public from dangerous drugs. Dr. Ingrid Scott, a 25-year veteran obstetrician gynecologist who serves as vice president and director of medical affairs for the pro-life CLI, told Decision. When they approved the chemical abortion regimen, they did not follow their own rules, Scott said. The FDA is required to study the pediatric population, which they never did. They approved Mifepristone in the category called accelerated approval regulations, which is meant to be used for drugs that treat life-threatening illnesses. So the policies here, and this is something that should be of grave concern, that because they were so eager to pump out this abortion pill, so they basically treated this drug as, gave it the same treatment as life-saving drugs. They gave it the same expedited review. Over time, they've removed the safeguards, and many times they point to studies. They don't even replicate the conditions that they now allow the abortion pill to be used under. The trouble started when 2 years ago, a CLI study led by Dr. James Studnicki found an increase in the rate of post-abortion ER visits following chemical abortions based on Medicaid claims data. So this company, CLI, which is a pro-life agency, so they found that why is it that we're seeing a massive increase in people who have to run to the ER after they get an abortion? What's been going on? Why is it that that you would think that would remain, statistically, whatever number of abortions are, a certain percentage should be consistently going to the ER, and that number should not be going up, but we're seeing an increasing trend. So they saw that increasing trend, and they're like, what the heck is happening in these abortion clinics that's leading to having this result? The study was widely cited and provided impetus for other studies seeking better information on the impacts of abortion on women. It was this study that, nearly 2 years later, caught the attention of a complainant, whose letter, which remains unpublished to date, prompted the publisher Sage to issue an expression of concern for the article. The EOC did not refer to any finding of the study, but claimed potential issues regarding the representation of data in the article and author conflicts of interest. So, basically, I know that the way this is written is a little confusing. I sort of had to read through this twice, so I'm going to try and make it that you can understand the first go round. The people are noticing that there is an increase of women post-abortion who, because as a result of getting an abortion, now need to get emergency room treatment. They're like, what the heck is going on? So they end up basically having studies commissioned to try to figure out what's going on. And the result of that study became which basically ended up being an attack on Mifepristone, basically came out and challenged the efficacy or the hazards associated with Mifepristone. Now, before we go any further, I just want to point out that even if there were issues with respect to the study, which is what it seems that we're going to get to here, that there were issues with the study, that does not mean that the FDA process here is not an abortion. That's poor choice of words. That the FDA process here is not completely messed up. It still could be. It's just that the study that helped to display that may have been poorly constructed and overhyped given potential flaws in that study. Let's go a little further so we can get more facts here. On November 13, Sage informed the CLI researchers that he was retracting the ER study and 2 additional studies, see here and here. Dr. Studnicki, of course, had no role whatsoever in reviewing and approving the articles that appeared under his lead authorship. The 3 articles provided new data sounding alarms that Mifepristone, a drug used in chemical abortions to block oxygen and nutrients from getting to a developing fetus, was never assessed properly, and that rather than being safe and effective, as the FDA and big abortion has been pushing for the last 20 years, it poses great health risks to females who take it. So that's what they said based off of these studies. Now they're retracting those studies. The retraction notice indicates that an independent assessment of studies was undertaken in response to a single reader's complaint that the studies contained misleading data, and the authors were linked with the pro-life organization, the CLI, creating a conflict of interest. So basically, there's speculation that, these studies were not properly performed, and CLI is driven by an agenda to try and stop abortions. So they're basically putting forward they're relying on studies that don't actually prove what they claim it proves. The paper's authors claim that the retractions are a politically motivated attempt to discredit data used by U.S. District Judge Matthew Kacsmark's April 2023 ruling to freeze approval of Mifepristone. Because that's what happened at the district court level. The judge was like, all right, I don't want to see women getting harmed by Mifepristone, so we're gonna freeze the approval, which is now used in about half of all abortions in the United States. The Supreme Court is scheduled to hear arguments on March 26 on the constitutionality of banning abortion pills on Kacsmark's decision, which will undoubtedly be influenced by the retractions. So we can anticipate, certainly, 3 judges there are going to say, why are we relying on anything here when there are flaws with the studies? Now, do we know that there actually were flaws with the studies? We don't know what these retractions are about. The studies are now being retracted, but we don't understand why, at least as of yet. Let's go further. Nikki, a listed author on all 3 papers in question, has stated that the retractions were completely unjustified and intended to undermine scientific research that challenged the pro-abortion bias ingrained in academia. So he says that these studies are not supposed to be retracted, and he still stands behind it. And he says the results are accurate and that there are dangers with Mifepristone. Nikki, who studied at Johns Hopkins University, spent decades conducting scientific research, told the Daily Wire that he and his colleagues were targeted because of the visibility of our work, because of the fact that our work was having such an influence on the abortion debate that was taking place in the states and the courts at the highest levels. According to Medicaid claims data, one of the now retracted studies released on November 9th, 2021, found that the rate of emergency room visits after chemical abortions increased by 500% between 2002 and 2015. Another study published in May 2022 examined the likelihood of recurring emergency room visits for women who did not tell clinicians they had a chemical abortion. These 2 studies were used in Kacsmark's decision to halt FDA approval of Mifepristone. So the question basically is, now this is a classic situation where we're seeing the science now is being politicized. Whenever you're talking about social sciences in general, it's very difficult, which is not really a social science. I guess these are studies of impacts. It's not really social science. It's not really a proper way to phrase it. Whenever you're talking about studies that are based on polling, I don't know. To me, it feels like a different kind of science. Furthermore, Dr. Ingrid Scott's testimony, who was an author on all 3 articles, was cited several times on an August decision by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which stated that the chemical abortion drug Mifepristone should not be distributed by mail or prescribed via telemedicine. That's being in-person prescription. Nikki went on to say that the retractions exemplified the politicization of science. He stated that proponents of abortion were greatly intimidated by the decision of Roe v. Wade, and we're now attempting to prohibit any study indicating risks associated with abortion from the academia. So he's basically saying that I don't know if they mean Roe v. Wade as opposed to Dobbs. I think the decision overturning Roe v. Wade. I think this article is poorly written. And that's why I was studying. I was very confused because Roe v. Wade doesn't make sense in this context. I think Dobbs really accelerated this. There's a sense of desperation among those in the abortion industry. They've always had the literature to themselves. All the major health associations are pro-abortion. Most of the journals are pro-abortion. All the academic departments in the universities are pro-abortion, he said. So the question is now, is the retraction of the studies, is that because there's a flaw in the studies, or is it political? That basically they were pressed into retracting the studies to influence the Supreme Court's decision. In prior correspondence with the authors, Sage pushed back against charges of political bias, claiming that the faults identified in the publications were based on independent evaluation by subject experts, and the articles had methodological issues. Issues. So Sage, who's responsible for retracting it, he's like, no. This was not because of politics. We retracted it because we actually found problems with these studies. No problems were reported with any of the studies until April 2023, the same month as Kaczmarek's decision, when pharmaceutical sciences professor and abortion supporter Chris Atkins complained to Sage about an article claiming that the study showed an increase in the rate of emergency visits was full of dishonest science and grossly misleading. So I'd like to understand more about that. What about those studies was purportedly grossly misleading? That's what I want to know. Like, what was so misleading that you say this now needs to be retracted, Sage? The researchers were unaware of any problems with the papers until June 28, 2023, when they received a complaint from a reader. They reacted to the complaints on July 13th, and the expression of concern was added to the article on July 25th. After months of correspondence with the journal, Sage informed the researchers on November 13th that they would retract the 3 papers. The following day, Stanicki was removed from the editorial board on the Health Services Research and Managerial Epidemiology Journal months before the retractions occurred. So this definitely seems, this is how you make something seem like weaponized politics, and that all these things that we're supposed to feel reassured that Mifepristone is totally safe. Don't worry, it's totally safe. All these chemical abortion, totally safe. That's, and I don't know. I'm not saying it is safe or it isn't safe. I know one thing: it's very not safe for a fetus. Very, very not safe for a fetus. I will go on record as saying Mifepristone, very unhealthy for any fetus. Doesn't sound like it's a fun experience either for the fetus. But they're not talking about concerns about the fetus. My gut says that when they're talking about whether or not this is safe, they're not talking about the safety of the fetus. They're talking about the safety of the woman who's carrying the fetus. So what we're seeing here is that we had these studies and that they had been recognized, and that recognition, it now seems like it's being retracted. And Sage is saying the retraction is justified and not because of politics. And Stanicki says that's not really true. And if you want to make Stanicki sound like he's telling the truth here, you have to ask, why is he removed the day after you make the decision? Why are you removing him altogether? What's happening here? Quote, in light of the decision to retract 3 research articles in which you are an author, I believe your term as an editorial board member has come to an end. As the editor, I appreciate your contributions to the journal. Clearly, you don't appreciate them, Dr. Greg Garrison said to Stanicki in an email obtained by the Post-Millennial. This remark occurred after Garrison had previously mentioned Stanicki's research in an editorial for Sage in March 2022. So you were praising him before, now you're not. Now, you could say that they're removing him because he intentionally fudged numbers. That's what Garrison is certainly trying to imply. That's Stanicki here is the one to be blamed, that he basically fudged studies. And without more, we don't know what the heck was the reason that they found these flaws. Why didn't you find these flaws earlier? This is what I don't understand. That only when someone complains do you find these flaws? Do they come up with logic that you hadn't considered earlier? It's a very strange thing that, like, years after studies are completed, and after you publish them, that you're going to say, oh, wow, these studies we published, they were crap. That's very strange. That's very, very strange to me. I don't understand that. On November 16th, the researchers wrote to Sage requesting more time to respond to the retraction notice, claiming that the retractions were procedurally improper and implying that the true reason for the retractions was to undermine their research ahead of the Supreme Court's consideration of Mifepristone. That the only reason you're doing this now is because the Supreme Court is about to be evaluating this, even though technically the issue of law that they're looking at is the FDA approval process. And if, in fact, Mifepristone is not a hazardous drug to women who take it, in that case, there's less alarming concern, I guess, about their playing fast and loose, even though that really still wouldn't be a win. Because it's really more about FDA procedure than it is about Mifepristone individually. Your decision also represents an unfortunate trend of utilizing scientific papers as a weapon against controversial conclusions, regardless of their objectivity. This further weakens public's trust in scientific groups and undermines your objective to advance knowledge, the authors wrote. So they're not happy with this retraction. They're not at all happy with this retraction. Not cool. Not cool. Just going to say. We'll finish this up in a moment. Not cool. The drug has a story past fast track FDA and a lack of ruling following sounds similar to Fox News. Fox News. It does sound a lot like Fox News. It sounds exactly like Fox News. Very unreliable Fox News. Sounds completely like the unreliable Fox News. But everyone thought Fox was great. And then after a while, people were like, wait a second. They're really not very good, and they're kind of toxic and really kind of bad. So the FDA process did not follow rules. That's what it seems like. They sort of were fast-tracking stuff that's not supposed to be fast-tracked. Good New Yorker. I don't know what that means, but thank you. Thank you much. And the new people did not have a conflict of interest. Of course they did not have a conflict of interest when they were standing up for pro-choice. None whatsoever. Why would you think otherwise? Why are you shouting, Joe? Oh, where are you? Mifepristone. Fan says, did Kelly Wong date Eric Swalwell? She's Fang Fang's sister. Fang Fang. On the floor, baby. Fang Fang. On the floor. I will tell you this. You all know that I used to smoke, right? I mean, even like as recently as 2 years ago when I started this show, I was still smoking at that point. I became a vapor like a year and a half ago, I want to say. So when I started vaping, like a year and a half ago. My singing voice has range now like I've never had in my life. It's crazy. It is crazy. God bless. Thank you, God. Crazy range like I never had before. On Friday night, I was like sitting around the table with the family. We're doing some singing. And I was like hitting notes that I was like, wow, I've never been able to hit a note like that before. Like my kids were like looking at me, like they just sort of stopped. They were like, and I was like, I don't know. Hitting notes. I'm hitting notes. It's crazy. Whew. So yeah, big fan of the vaping. Thank you. It is all the estrogen. All right, let's go back to let me finish this story. Can I finish this story? Days after missing the initial retraction deadline, Sage responded to the researchers on November 21st, giving them until November 29th to respond, and denied that the retractions were politically driven. Quote, Sage rejects as baseless your allegation that the time of the retraction notice was in any way related to the Supreme Court case. Why would you even think this has anything to do with the Supreme Court? I don't even understand that. That sounds crazy. Sage stated in a letter obtained by the Post-Millennial, quote, the retraction of the 3 publications is exclusively based on the findings of the investigation, which Sage was responsible for as a Committee on Publication Ethics member and as the journal's publisher. Sage's principal purpose and commitment, as it has been for over 50 years, is to ensure the highest levels of academic publishing integrity. Any insinuation that politics plays any kind of role in how we approach the science in the mission is both unfounded and offensive. We are so offended. I can't tell you how offended I am by your claims that things that everyone assumes is likely of serious concern is something that relates to my world. How dare you imply that the science here is run by humans? Who do you think you are? Sage argued that one of the reasons for the retractions was that the researchers failed to disclose conflicts of interest. That's the problem? That you deign there to be a conflict of interest? The journal said that the CLI researchers tricked them, failed to reveal blatant conflicts. Why is that a conflict of interest? So Nikki, on the other hand, see, that's not who the messenger is doesn't mean that the study is flawed. That's not an argument in the study. That sounds like people have been weaponized to me. With new range, you can come to Discord Music Night. Show us your range. You have no idea my range now. It's crazy. I used to have basically one key. Now I can like move keys. I'm moving pianos, buddy, with my voice. Moving pianos. So Nikki, on the other hand, stated that they had made it obvious that the work was supported by the Charlotte Lozer Institute and had repeatedly detailed their ties. The Institute and the research is the research arm of the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America organization. Kasmarek cites both pieces, which indicate that the bottom line, this work was supported by CLI, which is known to be pro-life. Tessa Longbonds, another author of the research, claimed that SAGE was using a double standard with conflict of interest claims, citing other papers published by SAGE journals in which writers linked with pro-abortion groups failed to disclose conflicts of interest. Oh, this is weird. Who would think that science, that academia is being run by leftists? What an unusual twist here. What an unusual twist. For example, in one SAGE article arguing for Mifepristone access, no competing interests were mentioned, despite the fact that the lead author supports abortion and the other writers are members of pro-abortion group. Similarly, no conflict of interest was declared by SAGE when they published this research from well-known Goliath of big abortion, the Guttmacher Institute. SAGE's response to researchers stated that the claim that they held pro-life and pro-abortion authors to separate standards was baseless, needlessly provocative. How dare you insinuate that your claims that we're treating you completely differently and identifying exactly how we are treating you differently are actually motivated by political bias rather than just random, capricious, and arbitrary decisions that we just happen to decide against you. This is not illogical. Why would you think that's illogical? Yes, it's true. They didn't mention their pro-abortion ties when they cited their studies. But what does that have to do with you? You didn't cite your pro-life ties. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Researchers responded by highlighting the apparent double standard. If SAGE now purports to have always required ideological disclosures, which sounds like crap because they never did before, SAGE itself has not maintained that standard. It seeks now to impose on us, the authors of the paper stated. Despite SAGE's dismissal of the point as unsupported, a cursory search clearly demonstrates that SAGE journals have published dozens of articles on abortion access and safety by researchers affiliated with organizations with very public and open positions on abortion. Another issue SAGE had with the study. So basically, the point here that's the Nikki and what's her face was making, Tessa Longbonds were making, is it's very strange that all of a sudden this medical journal is now basically saying that we can only support something if you disclose your political affiliation, when you didn't hold the pro-abortionists to that standard. There was a whole bunch of pro-abortionists who came out with findings that favored abortion. This only goes to show, by the way, all they're proving, there's all this whole back and forth is proving, even removing it. Why are you removing something? Because it was done, because they failed to disclose it was done by pro-life. This is such an admission. It's such a tell. This is what, you know what the tell is? The tell is that everyone involved here knows it's very easy to fudge information. Because if it was difficult to fudge the information, difficult to fudge the results, you wouldn't care who the author is. So it must be that they're recognizing that the science is really not science. It's a credibility statement. That's all it is. That we trust this person. We don't trust that person. That's all it is. That's not science. When science is different, depending on scientific results, do you know what the scientific method is? The scientific method, just to show you that this is crap. This is not science. This shouldn't pass the Daubert test, okay? Meaning admissibility in court. You want to know why this is not science? I'll tell you why it's not science. It's not science because the whole entire point to science is you proven something if whatever it is, your methodology of doing something would be repeated in a completely different place by different people and meet the exact same results. That's what makes it science. It doesn't matter whether you drop this on one part of Earth or different part of Earth, it's going to fall at the same 32.1 feet per second. That's science. It's immutable, unchangeable. It's always the same. That's what makes science science. That's what gives it the special heralded respect of being science. That basically, when people say trust the science, the reason that actually used to make sense at one point or another is because science was immutable. And it was not something that you could just be fudging as far as, look, this either is chemicals. This is how they respond property-wise when you interact, mix this together with that, or put them in relation to a third compound. And it doesn't matter where you are or who's doing it or who's administering it. It's just that's the way things work because they have these properties. That's what makes something science. In physics, we say, you know what? That a force in motion will continue in motion until another force acts upon it. You want to know why? Because that works all over the universe. All over the universe. That's what makes it science. It gives it that sort of, pardon the expression, but the recognition, the veracity, the trust of godliness to it, because it's truth. That's irrefutable truth. That's what makes science science. As soon as you start telling me, oh, I can't trust your scientific research because it's done by someone who has ties, or this person who has ties, and whether that does, that's totally related. That now tells me that it's not science, could not be repeated by others. And that all we're basically saying is, here's an essay from people who feel a certain way on this agenda. That's not science. It's fiction. It's the opposite of science. It's the exact opposite of science. It could not be more the opposite of science. Because basically, instead of it being an immutable truth that holds true throughout the universe, or at least, I don't know, throughout this planet, it instead is something that is completely malleable, something that completely changes depending on who the author is. And that means that it's the opposite of science. In fact, you've actually disproven that anything can be. All you've proven is that nothing can be proven. That's the only science we have here. And that's why I said all these studies that they do, whenever they have these studies and these reports and this and that, that's why I'm like, that's not science. It's not science, because you don't get the same results depending on where you are or who's involved or anything of that nature. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. You know what you need to do? You know how this becomes science? This becomes science if you explain why it is that Mifepristone works and you figure out why Mifepristone doesn't work. Or any drug. It doesn't have to be some sort of abortion-related drug. If you figure out what it's doing to a body, how chemicals are reacting to it, why it is that some people are having terrible reactions or others are not, that's when it's science, when you can break down the why, not just the numbers and the results. Because the numbers seem to be very fudgeable. Very, very fudgeable. You want to talk about the science behind the FDA, they need to be able to understand why something works and what risks are associated and why it is that there would be 0.001%, hopefully, that who would have negative reactions to this particular, towards drug A, B, C, or D. That's how science works. You can sort of actually walk us through how it is that these people have positive reactions and then a small handful have negative reactions. When you can start figuring that out and explain to us what makes these people different from those people, I understand people are different and it might, because of certain what seems like small insignificant factors could have a very serious impact on how they react to a particular drug. You want to tell me that you walk them through that? That's what makes it science. That you can walk us through how it got there. And why it works for so many people and why it doesn't work and why it is that it might work sometimes for some and be completely non-effective in other cases. That's when you can start claiming that you have knowledge of science. Until you are able to walk us through all of these different processes, you just have guessing. and you have guessing, which is basically now being promoted. And here's the evil part. It's guesswork. It is authorship. It is fiction that is being promoted as godlike truth. Because they slap on the label science, and as soon as they slap on the label science, how dare you question the science? How audacious that is. How dare you question the science? You know what? If you walked us through the entire thing, we wouldn't be questioning it. But you can't. You're dependent on who's doing the study as to what result we're going to have. That means it's not science. It's propaganda. It's a work of fiction. It's Isaac Asimov. It's Gene Roddenberry. That's what it is. A whole bunch of guesswork, and it's like, oh, I hope it works. I hope it does this. You're full of crap. It's a crock. It's not science. So if a paper becomes invalidated because of who the author is, or could be invalidated because of who the author is, then no paper on this is valid. No paper on it can possibly be valid. Because authorship shouldn't matter. Because gravity works 100% of the time. 100% of the time. Doesn't take vacations. That's what science. Science doesn't take a vacation. It's always the same. Always the same. So they label this science. And then they put on airs of, how dare you question me? How dare you question them, you jackass? Who are you that makes you so special? How dare you question? That's offensive. You shouldn't be offended. You're just being called the fraud that you are. You're a freaking fraud. That's what you are, Sage. You're a freaking fraud. Everything about your whole entity, your whole agency here is a fraud because you're labeling it science and you're claiming that the science would change depending on who the author is. That means it's not science. It's like, oh, I like Asimov. I don't like Roddenberry as much. And I'm like sitting there like, are you really serious? Really? I mean, come on. Look what Roddenberry did. I mean, come on. Come on, this is George Lucas. George Lucas science. Another issue Sage had with the studies, according to correspondence with the authors, was that a reviewer on the manuscript was linked with the Charlotte Leozer Institute. I think we covered this. So Nikki, on the other hand, said that Sage picks reviewers and that the articles were reviewed in a double-blind manner, which means that the authors did not know who was examining the piece and reviewers did not know whose work they were reviewing. With that, you would hope would try to fix it somewhat. We did not pick the reviewer in question, and the reviewer's identity is still unknown to us. In fact, this reviewer may not have been a CLI associate scholar when he or she wrote the review. Similarly, because Sage uses double-blind peer review, the reviewer was also unaware of our names when evaluating our work. The researchers informed Sage. Sage questions some of the Nikki and other researchers' methodological decisions. The whole methodology. It faults the November 2021 study because it had measured abortion complications through emergency room visits using Medicaid data. The researchers tracked emergency room visits by women who had confirmed abortions within 30 days after the visit. The researchers classify the visits into categories, including abortion-related visits. Critics argue that an adverse reaction to abortion should only be counted if the visit requires surgery or hospitalization. Why? Why would that? Oh, well, if you didn't need surgery, in that case, that was a totally fine abortion. So what if they had to go to the ER? That's not a problem. Totally natural for a woman to have to go to an ER a week after getting an abortion. As long as she doesn't need surgery, everything's fine. My God. These are the people who are looking out for the rights of women. Sending them to the ER. Yeah, but did they need surgery? Did they need surgery? Terrible. Well, I think that if a woman has an abortion and she starts to bleed, or she starts to have serious pain, or sees some sort of discharge that's indicative of an infection, she goes to an emergency room. I think that's a serious adverse event and a complication, the doctor added. Despite the retractions, Nikki stated that he and his colleagues will continue to create high-quality research, calling it a badge of pride to be targeted by pro-abortion supporters. And I think they are targeted. I think they are. Quote, this is the most powerful tribute to the strength of our science that anyone could hope for. We're doing all the proper things. We aim to continue doing the right things, but it'll be more difficult to have things published since they're attempting to ruin our reputation, he stated. Meanwhile, the case against the FDA and the shadowy manufacturer Mifepristone, Denko Laboratories, is set to be heard by the Supreme Court. The Charlotte Lozier Institute amicus curiae can be read here. Where? Here. There you go. I'm not going through the 57-page brief. Nope, not doing it. We are not doing that today. I'm not promising I'm going to do that ever, but definitely not today. It's President's Day. I'm supposed to be on a holiday. Holiday. Sing us a sea shanty. A sea shanty? I'm not singing a sea shanty. Maybe on perm I'll sing. We'll see. We'll see if I sing. Maybe on perm. That's the most likely time that I would break into song. The science and the politics are the same. Malach. Safe and effective. Completely safe. Completely effective. Completely safe. It's not recommended for fetuses, though. It's not. Mifepristone is not recommended for fetuses or for people who like fetuses. Just saying. Not recommended for those of you who like fetuses, especially if you happen to have one inside your body. Physicist here. Acceleration due to gravity on Earth is not a constant. It varies slightly based on several factors. You see, now you're just being a dick. Don't get me started on Einstein. Don't get me started on Einstein. Here's the thing. If you can tell me in what circumstances you can predict that it will change and you know you're going to be right, that's still science. It doesn't have to be a constant. If you can figure out the variant, the degree of variation in given contexts, it's still science. It's the predictability, which is what makes it truth. That you know with utmost confidence how things are going to work. And if they don't work that way, it makes you reassess everything that you understand about the science. That's what makes something science. That's when it earns respect. That's when it merits respect. What are your thoughts on science's replication crisis? What's the replication crisis? I'm not aware of the replication crisis. No one told me about the replication crisis. I don't know anything about the replication crisis. I am curious to see your thoughts as far as like chemical abortion. Do you think there's a difference between chemical abortion and Plan B? Is Plan B just like an early stage chemical abortion? I am curious about your thoughts about that. I've been thinking more and more about this. Whether Plan B is really simply just a very early Mifepristone. I'll let you weigh in on that. I'll let you gather your thoughts on that. You might need a moment or two to gather your thoughts. And that's okay. I'll give you your moment. You can have your moment. I have stuff to do. While you're doing that, while you're mulling that over amongst yourselves, I'm going to check in and see what they think in locals about that, which is at goodlogic.locals.com. That's goodlogic.locals.com. They're talking about Kamala. That's what they're doing there. They're talking about Kamala. Obviously, the topic of abortion got them started. The topic of abortion got them started talking about Kamala. All right. I'm not passing judgment on you, diggers. I'm not passing judgment on you. While you're all weighing in on that, I'll share with you this. One more reason to hate Nikki Haley, because in case you need a reason. In case you need another reason. Ooh.
Strong America that prevents wars that we can all be proud of. That's what I am trying to do. And that's what I think Americans want as
we don't want you.
We go forward. And that's why I think this primary is so important.
So we're just about out of time, but I've got to ask you, you had said earlier in this process that you will support Donald Trump if he wins the Republican nomination. But since you made that pledge, he has encouraged NATO, he encouraged Russia, said he would encourage Russia to do whatever the hell it wants with a NATO ally. You have called him
not true.
Diminished, unhinged, unfit for office.
Because she's desperate, losing touch, unfit for office.
Are you still making that pledge that you would actually support
you would
after all
actually
of that,
support Trump?
Donald Trump for president of the United States if he beats you for the Republican nomination?
I mean, keep in mind, I am running against him.
No, I know.
For a reason. I'm running against him because I don't think he should be I don't think he's the right person at the right time. I don't think he should be president. The last thing on my mind is who I'm going to support.
Whoa. What happened there?
The only thing on my mind is how we're going to win this. The only thing on my mind is how we're going to make sure that we correct what's happening in America and we bring this country back together, allow her to heal, and move on in a strong way. I'm not thinking about who I'm going to support in an election.
But you've already said it.
We are going to have a female president of the United States. It will either be me or it will be Kamala Harris. And if Donald Trump is the nominee for the Republican Party, he will not win. Every poll shows that. He will not win. And we will have a President Kamala Harris. I'm not going to allow that to happen. I'm not stopping. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to do this for the long haul, and we're going to finish it.
Does that mean you will not support him if he's the Republican nominee?
Despite the fact that you made a promise that you would?
That means I'm going to run and I'm going to win. And y'all can talk about support later. Right now, you can ask him if he's going to support me when I'm the nominee.
She's so friggin' deluded. So friggin' deluded. You may have missed this from her. You may have missed this. Let me check and make sure. Let's see. Nikki took the bribe that Carrie took turned down. Maybe. Yeah. Yes. That would explain a lot. You might have missed this. She put this out on X yesterday. Where were you? Can't believe I almost didn't share this with you. This is perfect for after midnight content. This is my after midnight content. This is what you put out yesterday. 12 fellas down, 1 to go. This was an unfortunate way to phrase that she's one of the last 2 remaining candidates. 12 fellas down, 1 to go. $12 fellas down, 1 to go. 4. How many quote tweets? How many quote tweets do you think? 12,000 comments to the 7,000 likes. By the way, this is what we call an X ratioed to hell. Ratioed to hell. Your poor husband obviously knew your grand. It's just every in a row. Stay hydrated. That one made me laugh. Stay 12 fellas down. 12 guys down, 1 to go. Larry O'Brien. It's a parody account. Dude's really funny. Stay hydrated. Oh my gosh. I hope you have good knee pads. Let's check out some of the quote tweets. The quote tweets I saw were just killing me. Some of them. Oh, I got it. Hoeing. Oh. I don't think this reads like shit. I forgot about this guy. I forgot about him. People who like trains. There you go. There you go. There you go. Might be the worst tweet in the history of all campaigns. Even Jenna Ellis said something funny. Nikki out there trying to give Kamala a run for her money. This is very unfortunate. Oh, that's not. Yeah, so there you go. Nikki Haley, you got to wonder why it is she's not doing better. Plan B isn't Mifepristone. I don't know what the heck it is. There's better form of birth control. Any woman on politics. Kamala, Nikki, any of them. Easiest mood killer ever. 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 All right. I think it's time for me to start landing my plane. Plane is coming in. Plane is coming in. It's time for me to start landing it. Final thoughts. Final thoughts. We're good. We're good here. We're good here. All right. Feeling very tired. All of a sudden, exhaustion just hit me. All right. Tomorrow, definitely doing locals. Tomorrow. Assuming that there is no, I don't believe, I'm almost positive that there's not going to be that stream of, that there's not going to be that appearance in Georgia. That's going to be pushed off till later in the week. So tomorrow we're going to have locals. That's a goodlogic.locals.com. Goodlogic.locals.com. I will be back here, good God willing, tomorrow evening at 10 p.m. Till then, make sure you look out for your loved ones, your family members, your friends, your family. They might be hungry. They might not have meat around. If that's their scenario, if that's what they're dealing with, look, that's a situation some people are dealing with. Tell them, you know what? Don't be sad about it. Stay happy. Eat some bugs. And as always, my friends, Godspeed.